This is actually quite alarming, but nonetheless extremely revealing as well. Right. So last Thursday, Scottish champions Rangers faced off against Czech side Sparta Prague in their second Europa League group fixture. And in making use of a loophole that allowed Sparta, the home team, to get around a stadium ban enforced by UEFA for reasons I'll explain in a minute, the Czech side offered free admission to children from local schools aged between 6 and 14, accompanied of course by their parents. And this was a proposal that was approved by UEFA before the match, so it's all legit. But during the match, it was being widely reported that Finnish midfielder Glenn Kamara was being jeered by the young Sparta Prague supporters every time he touched the ball. And if we scroll down a little bit on this article, so he was targeted by a crowd of children in Prague on Thursday night.
Right.
And in effect, the media has been pretty ubiquitous in...
well, this was racist, clearly.
Yes.
There's a bunch of racist children.
A bunch of racist children. And, well, quite frankly, as we're going to see, this is maybe slight overreach. And
imagine my shock.
Yes. And if we get the video up now, I think we'll see. Okay, so just to disambiguate what's going on here.
Yeah.
The first part of that is quite simply the fans acting in kind of, you could say, either support for Sparta Prague or the contempt for the Rangers supporters for taking the knee. And as we know, whenever someone does such a thing, the UK media essentially, or the sports media in particular, immediately renders it as an endorsement of racism of the very, very worst kind. And needless to say, this is egregious. And that's the second part is a little bit more open to interpretation. But
I didn't hear them shouting the N-word.
No, they're hurling abuse at camera, but you can hear quite clearly if you hear the uncensored version. There's no racial language that is being used. But the reason that this is being stirred up as a racial incident is because of the context leading up to this.
Right.
But first, I think it might actually be funny to see how Sparta Prague officially actually responded to the accusations that the kids that they had let into the stadium were acting explicitly racist. So if we get this up from the Daily Record. Yep.
Or is there another video here?
Oh, I can just read it out.
Oh yeah, go.
This is a quote from Sparta Prague themselves. It is absolutely unbelievable that after a match we have had to watch innocent children being attacked and face unfounded accusations of racism. Insulting children on the internet and in the media is unacceptable, desperate and ridiculous. Stop attacking our children. Our club will proudly defend our children, our future and our pride. Slandering children on the internet is extremely cowardly. We are seeing unprecedented xenophobic statements against the Czech Republic, its citizens and even its children on social media. You are describing the behaviour of children incorrectly, arrogating to yourself the right to judge the expression of emotions of 6-year-old children who have no idea what racism is. It's an impertinence. Needless to say, they're not holding back.
I love that it's an impertinence.
Yeah, it's an impertinence.
That's a great statement.
I mean, I've honestly never come across such a you could say a based response from a football club on this matter. That's not to say that racism's completely absent here.
Sure.
But let's not.
Kids.
This is basically being reported as a case of almost like a group collectivized effort by children who have been coerced to do this in some way. I don't know. But to put this in the context of why this has been received as racist, the stadium ban was implemented by UEFA in the first place. It was implemented in virtue of Sparta being unable to prevent Monaco's, and I'm sorry if I pronounce his name wrong, Aurelian Tchouameni from being subject to monkey gestures during the previous Europa League fixture against Monaco. Needless to say, that's awful.
Yeah.
But the context underwriting the UK media's reaction goes back further, and this is where Rangers come into this. Last season, on March the 18th, when Rangers played Sparta's rival Slavia Prague in the round of 16, there was another incident involving Glenn Kamara and Andre Kajula.
So is this going to be these kids know this history and don't like this individual player?
Yeah, in effect, yes. And because of that, they must be expressing contempt because they're racist.
Yeah, because they're yelling, in the video, you can hear them yelling his name particularly. Because
Yes.
there were other black players on the pitch. They weren't yelling at them. They were yelling at this one guy.
Yeah.
Right.
If we take a look at the Guardian coverage of this particular match, defender found guilty of racist abuse at Ibrox, Kamara banned for 3 games for assaulting Kadela. So let's see what this is all about. So he was reported to have called Kamara, again, there's no nice way of putting this,
No.
a monkey during the match. And having been found guilty of this offence by UEFA, he was subsequently banned for 10 matches. Kadela has continued to deny making the remark ever since. But the media has in effect arrived at the non sequitur that the jeering from the Sparta Prague supporters, in short, is assumed to be related to this incident in March and thus an expression of contempt for the charge and by extension solidarity with the rival player who has been charged as racist.
Right. So do we not have any? We don't have any proof that he called him a monkey. Is that? It's just an allegation, is it?
Well, it was reported by the Rangers players,
Right.
and I imagine there must have been some lip reading involved as well.
Okay.
I mean, it's the evidence seems pretty strong when you consider the weight of the testimonies. I've got no reason to think that this did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on these grounds, in effect, this. It's tracing it back to this incident and mixing this with the jeering for the children. The UK media has interpreted this jeering as racially motivated, but as I'm sure, at least I heard and you can hear, it seems like the level of the abuse is pretty low.
It seems personal. It doesn't seem like it's racial. It seems we're not like we hate black people. We hate you.
It's extremely. I mean, I've been to 10 football matches in my life. There are some pretty contemporaneous things that are said that don't actually mean anything in the spirit of competition.
Yeah.
That's not to say that some of the things are not awful, because they are, but nonetheless, to jump at a child's on a child's utterance like this, I think is pretty low. And even though it does appear that there does seem to be a bit of a problem with Sparta's and Slavia Prague supporters in these cases, they are absolutely right to in effect call the media out and call Rangers out for saying that, look, you've jumped on this without even having the extensive knowledge to launch such a charge.
And what I find, if we can just go quickly back to their response, right? I find this really, really interesting because their response is deeply moral. And that's normally not the kind of response you get. Like you said, it's a deeply based response. Their response is based completely on the moral intuitions to defend their children. As they say, they're our future and our pride. Slandering children on the internet is extremely cowardly. My God, like you think you make honour charges against journos these days?
Yeah.
Of course it's cowardly. They're a bunch of cowards. They're the slimiest people on earth.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, of course. Like, yeah, it feels like I'm hearing something from the 16th century. You know? This is the kind of insult that I would have heard then. You know, they don't care about honour whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I find it very interesting. It's a deeply sort of moralistic response.
Yeah.
We just don't see anymore.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, could we be able to go back to the Metro article again, so we can actually see some of the responses from the UK media here? Yeah. If we just go down a bit, so up a little bit. Yeah, that's it. So the Athletic's Jordan Campbell, who was reporting on this on Twitter, reported that Kamara is now being booed with every touch. Let's just make it perfectly clear that there were other black players on the pitch. They weren't booing him. I can't remember what the player's name is. That would in itself suggest that this is aimed at a particular individual, may not be a general contempt of someone in virtue of their race.
Yeah.
And BT Sports commentator and former Rangers midfielder Alex Ray said there's no two ways about it. He's being targeted by these kids. It's difficult to hear in this day and age, but this is the case. He's clearly being... I don't know where exactly the commentary box was. Maybe they were right next to that child. But from what we could hear, was there a massive chorus of chanting of anything?
No, it sounded localised. But okay, so there are a bunch of kids at a game who don't like Kamara because of an interaction he had that got a previous a footballer they obviously like banned for 10 games. And so they're booing him and not the other black guy. So it's not the fact that he's black, it's the fact that they think he's an arsehole.
In effect, yes. Yeah. I mean, there may be some people who genuinely think he deserves this in virtue of his race.
Possibly.
But there is nothing conclusive to suggest that. And to jump to that conclusion off the back of, well,
it just goes,
utterances by children, to leech onto that is...
It just goes to show you exactly the kind of mindset that the media are in, doesn't it?
No,
they want this. They want it to be racism.
They want this. They're finding cases of racism where there aren't. And in this particular case, there is more merit than others. But even so, I think the act of opportunism was pretty low. Yeah. I mean, do you listen to TalkSport all that much? I'm not sure if you are a man of sports.
I'm not a sports fan.
Not a sports fan.
I prefer to play rather than watch.
Yeah. If you tune in, I mean, pretty much all they talk about is racism. I wouldn't have a problem with this at all if they actually talked about it in the nuanced way that such an important issue deserves. But they quite literally still think, like many of them still think, that the narrative is with this post-racial idea of not judging people because of the colour of their skin. They don't seem to realise that this is all being kind of peddled with diversity as the end of it.
Yeah. But moreover, this is a great example, in fact. Like, it just goes to show you that any sort of public criticism or animus against an individual who happens to be black is then always conflated into being racism. Because, I mean, I don't doubt there are other players who are not black who have sections of the fans who dislike them. Right?
Yeah.
There are bound to be. And, this guy is a jerk because for whatever reason. And so there are always going to be a section of the fans that boo this guy because of who he is and what he's done. And Kamara is, in fact, being treated like everyone else in that way.
Pretty much.
And yet, because he's black, that means he's not allowed to be booed by a bunch of kids.
That's what it inadvertently means. Yeah. I mean, do you remember when Ashley Cole went from Arsenal to Chelsea? And there was
I do not.
You do not. Well, there was, needless to say, Arsenal and Chelsea absolutely hate each other. And this was a massive. This is like the equivalent of crossing the Rubicon for Arsenal fans, right?
Right. Okay.
And he was basically absolutely hammered by the media for making a move which was perceived to have been entirely on monetary grounds. Like he was being called greedy, flash, all these sorts of things. Basically called a sleaze for allowing himself to be tapped up by the then Chelsea chief executive Peter Kenyon. And on the kickoff, which is a footballing podcast, which it was a special edition in response to. It was amidst the George Floyd fallout. They had somehow arrived at the conclusion the very reason that Ashley Cole was given this level of abuse was because he was black. It had nothing to do with the fact that he had gone from Arsenal to Chelsea.
Not the fact that he was literally Benedict Arnold of the football team.
Yes.
I mean, and like you can understand... This. So I've never been a football fan, but if there's one thing you can see from the outside, it's that there are some very deep passions involved in this, and very long-held grudges involved in this. And so, like the Benedict Arnold of football is going to get booed every time the opposing fans are watching him play. Obviously,
but they've made a race issue even out of this. I had honestly not heard a single racial utterance aimed at Ashley Cole in this entire measure.
And I bet they all cheered him when he was scoring for Chelsea or whatever. Wasn't he? They were like, hey, Ashley Cole, he's our boy. Now he's gone to the others. Oh no, we hate him now. Oh, you're a racist. That's not what this is.
No, but just to illustrate the change in focus and discourse at the moment, insofar as sport is concerned, there was something called the Rooney Rule, which was I think the FA were discussing or something like that. Which it was about the it was a means of attempting to give more managerial opportunities to different players of different ethnicities and
class backgrounds.
Class background. They all hated it basically, but now they've decided that they like it. Perhaps we can cover this another time.
Yeah, we'll cover it another time. But okay, so just to summarise, then, this is probably nonsense.
Yes, and it's unashamed opportunism at the expense of people that aren't as of yet recognised legally as rational beings because they're children.
Yes. I mean, why is the media bullying a bunch of 6 to 14-year-olds?
Yeah, it's pretty low.
But it's unbelievable, isn't it? That's more important to them than the propriety about the way that they should treat children. They think, oh no, these children are racist, and therefore it's justified for us to use the collective power of the media to bully a bunch of kids. And so, like you were saying about the statement from the football side, appropriately moral. Say, no, you're wrong for daring to treat children this way. Like, it would be totally irresponsible. I would never dream of publishing something attacking a bunch of children on our website. God,
No.
It would be totally wrong. Oh, these children are a bunch of communists. Well, okay, but they're kids. Like, we're not gonna, we'll talk about like Carrie Simmons being a communist, but we're not gonna talk about a bunch of kids being communists.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can catch the full podcast at 1 p.m. every weekday UK time at lotuseaters.com. You can also sign up at lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site.
Yeah, that's how we keep this whole operation running. And recently we've put up loads of great stuff, such as this interview with legendary comedian Steve Hughes, one of my personal favourite comedians, so it was a real honour to be able to meet him. But one thing that I didn't expect, that he would be such a deep thinker, and this podcast is genuinely like a meeting of minds in a way. He was right on my wavelength on a bunch of things and helped me actually connect a bunch of dots, but I'm not going to carry on and spoil it. We also, of course, have lots of interesting articles that have been written, such as this one by Josh about the dumbest country on earth. And for for silver tier subscribers, we also include a link, so it's we have an audio reading of it from a chap called Jonathan, who has a very smooth voice that you will enjoy. And this is great because often I don't have time to read all of the articles we put up, because we've put up a lot of regular content. And so this saves me the hassle of having to read it myself. So I really actually am very appreciative of this feature on a personal level. But we also do the Contemplations and Epochs, which are just interesting podcasts about interesting things. These are regular weekly podcasts. So this one is one of our writers, Josh, who's he's got a master's degree in psychology, talking about theories of intelligence and how they matter. And of course, we've got the Epochs, where myself and Bo, or in this case it was Josh and Bo, talking about the life of Sir Francis Drake. So that's 2 solid hours talking about England's most notorious adventurer. But we've also got lots and lots of other ones. This is number 21, so there's a good back catalogue there. And finally, we have our book clubs, and this is the part that I'm most proud of. Recently, we've done Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell, and
Reflections on a Ravaged Century by Robert Conquest.
Yeah, Robert Conquest is fantastic. Just, if you want Western chauvinist historian, he's your man.
Anti-socialism.
Yes, in all forms, it's fantastic. And like I said, that's what keeps the podcast running. So if you want to become a member, thank you very much, and we think there's some great stuff you'll enjoy.